Hi, everyone. So I'm Wayne Carter. As Perry said, I'm the Chief Architect of Mobile, so I head up our mobile and IoT products here at Couchbase. And today, I'm going to give you an introduction, a practical introduction to how our mobile products are being used, what our customers are trying to achieve, and how they're doing that. And then there'll be a good amount of time for you to ask questions. So we'll have that at the end. So just starting with the beginning is we all know that businesses, employees, and customers are very demanding today, right? They're looking for exceptional experiences when they use these digital technologies that help them do their job better or help them interact with a business in a more effective way, right? And they're really looking for a personalized, feature-rich experience that works all the time, right? When they need it, it's there, it works. When they need it and use it, it's always fast. And they can do it anytime they like, anywhere, anytime. And so that's great, we know that, that's what we want to achieve. And we're participating in a lot of this at Couchbase, right? Our customers span every industry, every use case, right? And many of them include mobile. And when they're looking at both our mobile and our full product offerings, they're trying to achieve something, right? They're not trying to build apps. That's not what people are doing, right? They're not trying to use databases. They're not trying to build apps, right? They're trying to get to fundamental business outcomes. So they want better products and services, right? Deliver them faster at higher rates of speed with higher quality, right? They're looking for a better customer experience. Why do they care about the better customer experience? Because that is who is consuming their products and services, right? And then they're looking for more effective employees, right? We're focusing on delivering products and services to our customers, but our employees are the ones that enable that in many cases, right? So if you make a more enabled employee, they're able to deliver better customer experience to your product and service consumers, and then in the very end, be a more effective business. So be better at this than we were yesterday, and be better than our competition. So it's really about using these digital concepts to drive these fundamental outcomes in the business. And we're seeing this across industries. So this is a number of our mobile customers spanning both travel, retail, and utilities. So I'll talk a bit about them. I'll talk about how they're solving these problems. Are these employee facing cases, or are they customer facing cases? And then how are they solving the problem? So Emirates was specifically focused on reducing the amount of time that it takes them to deliver a product in their premium cabin of their flights. So product being food or some other amenity on the plane. And can we take the amount of time it takes for a passenger to request one of these items and reduce the amount of time it takes us to actually deliver on it. And so a good example of that is a drink order, right? I order a water or whiskey or something like this, and previously the way that works, we all flown a lot and probably flown here, is they write down your order, right? This is what happened a year ago or 2 years ago before they started introducing these digital technologies on planes. They write down the order. At some point, they'll go to the galley and pick up the order and bring it to you. And even in a premium cabin where you have the number of attendants to customers quite substantial, it still takes a good amount of time, right? If I write it down, walk to the galley, and bring it back to you, we're talking about at least a few minutes of time, right? So 3 minutes is probably the best you can expect, right? So they were really focused on, okay, can we take that worst case scenario or best case scenario of 3 minutes and bring that down, right? And how far can we bring it down? And so they introduced Couchbase Mobile into their technology stack running on their airplanes. The attendants use mobile devices to enter the order into the system at the point of request, right? So if I come to your seat and I want a drink, I put it into my mobile phone, and that is automatically synchronized using our peer-to-peer replication to the galley, and then run directly to the passenger in real time. And so it's reported by Emirates in many cases that the requested item is delivered before the attendant ever even leaves the seat. So reducing it from minutes of delivery time down to seconds. So 15, 30 seconds to actually run that to the seat. So dramatically changing the amount of time it takes to deliver products and service, driving a better customer experience on the plane based on their preferences and orders and a number of other more sophisticated concepts, and doing that with digital technology. Right? This isn't install some massive system on your plane and go through regulatory approval and then roll it out 2 years from now. This was start to finish months of work, right, to just radically change the way they deliver services on the plane. Louis Vuitton, and that's an employee-facing app, right? So that's an employee given technology and given a tool to make them more effective at their job, driving a better experience to the customer. Right? Louis Vuitton is similar, employee-facing application, delivering the seasons catalog to their employees throughout the world with changes delivered on a daily basis. Right? In their hand, they can search the season catalog, determine what inventory is available, and stock is available for sale within the store itself and stores around them. Right? And this is about when you walk up to a representative in a brick and mortar store at Louis Vuitton and they pull out their phone, right? And you ask them a question: what material is this available in? What colors? What sizes? What do you have in stock? All of these questions, always available. 100% of the time they can ask the system that question and it will tell them. They can, and it's millisecond response times. So this isn't, okay, sorry, just wait for a second. The thing is spinning. The system is slow. There's none of that. It's always available, always fast, bringing those same requirements that you have from the cloud. Right? You have latency requirements or in millisecond speeds, right? You can't have middle tier technology waiting on some system for many seconds or the experience degrades on the front end. Well, those same requirements that you have on web technology, they exist on client technologies also, right? Especially if you're talking about business critical applications, right? When you bet a business critical process on any solution, you have to make sure that they can fulfill the requirements of that business critical process. Right, including digital technologies. Right, paper or digital, they still have the same requirements. And I'll talk about that here in a second. PG&E, another one, again, employee-facing cases. Right, there are large service fleets that they have at PG&E servicing their assets in the field. This is about making their job easier, making everything they need to service those requests available to them all the time, 100% of the time, and fast. So when I'm in the field and I need to get my job done, do I have what I need? That's what they're using us for. And the way they're doing that, here's a very simple high-level diagram of how they're doing that. They're taking their existing business environments, right, that's made up of business data, business services, and processes, and they're mobilizing that. And they're going through a series of requirements that I'll talk about here in a second to decide what technology can I use. Am I able to mobilize this business process? Right? Is it able to meet, is it business critical? If it is, does it meet my business critical needs? And then who is interfacing with this? In these specific cases that I gave, it's all the employee, right? The employee is actually in between the customer and the business, right? And the business is then enabling the customer through the employee through these digital technologies, right? So what do they look for in business critical? All of those cases that I talked about, they're all business critical. If they stop, it impacts the business, either revenue or some type of reputation impact. All of those cases and many of the cases that use mobile today are business critical. So what do they look for? So when you're mobilizing a business critical process, it needs to be able to be used when you need it. So it needs to be guaranteed 100% availability, right? When I need it, I can use it. Guaranteed millisecond access times. System-wide security. So we're talking about distributed environments here that cross multiple types of security boundaries. Manage that. Make it secure. And then business critical data recovery. So if you're collecting business critical data on the edge, you need a data recovery plan. Right? So if I'm, say, a service representative and I'm taking a signature at the end of my task, that's important to the business to have that sign off from the customer. Well, if I have 50,000 employees in the field, devices are failing every day. Right? They're either failing through mechanical failure or just accidental breakage. And if I lose that business critical data, I'm not getting it back. Right? You can't go back and get it. So you really need a data recovery plan. All right. And those are the business requirements, right? It doesn't matter what your solution is. It doesn't matter if it's a digital solution. It doesn't matter if it's a, a physical solution like carbon copy paper, right? It still has the same requirements. And now that transfers to digital. And so keep that in mind. I'll talk about it a bit more. But these are the things we're looking for, right? We're looking for things that solve this problem and also give us an advantage and let us deliver better products and services at higher quality, at higher rates and higher volumes. All right, so the next thing I want to look at is what type of technology approaches and what capabilities do they enable, right? So these are the three ways that you can manage data, right? You can have remote only, that's like a service-oriented architecture, right? Where you're storing everything in the cloud, using some service approach to access that data when you need it. And that's typically done using REST services, right? And so there's a couple other things in here that I want to point out that kind of help us get towards, the answers to our requirements. When you use a data location that's remote only, then to access that data, you always require a network connection. There's no way to get to the data if you don't have a network connection because the data is stored on the other side of the network. Due to the variability of networks, you can only have sometimes availability, meaning that the network is only sometimes available, so the data is only sometimes available, so the solution I provide can only be sometimes available. And then the speed at which it will work is also dictated on the network. So networks are not consistent, right? They're sometimes fast, they're sometimes slow. But when there is an application, when there is a network connection, is it fast or slow is variable with the internet. You don't control it, you share it with everyone else, and you're impacted by that. All right? So that solution, a remote-only solution, only provides availability sometimes, and speed is variable. Sometimes it'll be fast, sometimes it will be slow. The next one is local only. So I could just store data on my device, don't share it outside the device, store it locally, and I start getting some benefits from that. All right? My data can always be available. It's stored on my local machine. If I try to access it, it will always be there. I have consistent speeds, consistent fast speeds that are usually bound by disk I/O, which is quite fast. Right? So you're always going to be fast and you're always going to be available, but you can't share the data. And most cases, you really want to share the data, right? You either want to share it back into the business, you want to share from the business to the employee, or the employee to the customer, or the business to the customer, right? You're trying to share data here in most cases. But if you don't need to, you do have the ability to just use an embedded database and never move the data off the system. The third one is to do a combination of the two. And by doing that, you get into this sweet spot. You can share data, you can guarantee availability, and you can guarantee speeds. And the way you get to that is through an embedded database plus synchronization. So if you're looking at those business requirements, you only have two solutions, right, from a technical perspective. Right? Then the question is, which ones are you going to use, if any? And it's local only, which really isn't a good solution for most cases, or you have local and remote with sync. So the main thing out of this is that only the local and remote data strategy enables through an embedded database plus synchronization meets the needs of business critical processes. Right? If you're moving a business critical process to a mobile environment, you need a database in sync, whether you build it yourself or get it from Couchbase or someone else. That's what you really need to meet those needs. So keep that in mind. It's a really nice practical way to think about it, right? That we can all understand is that what's the technology I use? Now go choose the one that has the functionality and features that I need, right? From an access perspective. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But before I do, let's talk about a few more customers. Tommy Hilfiger, they're a long-term customer of ours. They started digitally transforming their B2B selling process a number of years ago, and they've continued to do that. Large success. That team is highly innovating in the space, one of the most innovative teams in that space. And they're really changing, and you saw that video earlier today, right, where you looked at how they're actually selling. And that's all on Couchbase Mobile. Right? Those rooms, those theaters, those desks that they're using to digitally sell their product to large retail stores that are going to sell the season's items throughout the year is done through these digital technologies. Massively innovative, and I would definitely recommend taking a look at them in the way they're solving those problems. And they're highly vocal about this. If you just search online, you'll find a number of videos and write-ups about that. BD, again mentioned today, is really about a patient, right? So I talked about customer and I talked about employee. Well, if you verticalize those concepts, right, into the healthcare, well, customer becomes a patient, right? The employee becomes a caregiver. And BD is really focused on how to change the quality of care. So you want to increase the quality of product and service delivered by the employee, so the caregiver. So bring up quality of care. Bring up the amount of data that the patient can share with the caregiver in real time. So BD is doing that specifically around insulin management. So Bluetooth devices that talk, that dispense medication, communicate that information to the mobile phone. It's stored on the mobile phone, always available, always fast, right? Always can capture that information, and then share it with the caregiver as available. So if they're on a network connection, it'll be done immediately. But if they're not on a network connection, it'll be done the next time they can. And so you're getting information in real time. Employees are able to have more information about the patient, so they can create customized care plans for them. Right? They're not just collecting in the waiting room and then providing kind of a point solution every 3-4 weeks in the medical office. They're actually gaining information in real time as the patient is going throughout their day. In addition to quantified information, like how are you feeling today? Do you feel bad? Do you feel good? What did you eat? Right? And combining all of this together with medication information to deliver a better product, or specifically service in most cases for them. And then United using us for crew management. So how do I manage my crew more effectively using these modern technologies with those same guarantees about availability and speed, both in the cloud and on device? So a good range of additional use cases there. And in these, I'll touch on BD, since BD is both an employee-facing and a consumer-facing, customer-facing, or patient-facing in their case. How did they go about it? So it looks very similar, right? You have one type of digital device for your caregivers, another type of digital device that's more common among patients, a phone. And then that information is synced both with the cloud, so back into the business and back to the caregivers, and amongst themselves. And then the patient and the caregiver can have a good, productive conversation about that information that was available. So we had some business outcomes that we were desired, and they were able to achieve these. These are 6 of many examples that we could give you, able to achieve these outcomes using our mobile technology and our server technology. So using the full stack. So better products and services across travel, utilities, healthcare, retail, and many others. The employees, I gave a couple of examples of the effectiveness of employees, but this is a lot of the focus right now with the way our mobile technology is used today is really focused heavily on that employee, right? Because you can really enable the employee with just small changes to the way you conduct business and dramatically change the way that your customers experience those products and services. So better customer experience and much more effective businesses. And right, we're all going through these digital transformations, and you have to transform, right? It's an inevitable thing that has to happen. It's about leveraging the technologies that are available to you to become better and deliver better, right? And digital technologies are a great way to do that. All right, so if we're trying to do that, what at Couchbase can help, right? How can Couchbase help you? So I'll talk a bit about that here. So our mobile product is made up of 3 main components. You have, on the server side, you have a database server, manages all of your data management needs in any cloud, right? Whether it's your public or private cloud, or both, right? You can use hybrid environments. On the client side, you have Couchbase Lite. That's our embedded NoSQL database. And the functionality you have between the two are the same, right? So you have query in the form of NQL. You have full text search. You have eventing. You have replication. You have security. Everything you need to manage data throughout the entire application and network stack to deliver on those business requirements. And sitting in between, we have our gateway component. The gateway is designed specifically for accessing and synchronizing data directly over the web, right? So you pop it up like any other web technology. Your devices are able to connect to that over the public internet. And we have fine-grained security in place on the gateway level to make sure that each user in the system is only able to read and write the data that they've been given access to. So on the read side, it's down to the record level per user. On the write side, it's down to the field level. So you can have one user that can just read, other users that can write, and even some other users that can write some very specialized restricted data. And you can manage that all in the gateway. And then utilize the query and search and eventing technology that we have on the client and use it both online and offline to meet the needs of your business and your customers. And then we have that built-in security throughout the entire stack. So I talked a little bit about the access control in Sync Gateway. We have all the other security aspects of managing data full stack also. So on the client side, we have full database encryption. So you can encrypt all the data in the database itself. So you only can read the data if you have access to those secret keys, password. Communication between the client and the server is all secure communication. You have that access control layer that I talked about in Sync Gateway, guarding against improper use of the data. And we're handling both access control and revocation, right? When you look at governance, governance is, yes, access control is an important thing. Can they read it? Yes, they can. Well, once you say that they can't read it, you also need to do revocation, right? We hear about a lot of this in the news, right? Much of the information that we hear is about the inability to revoke, right? Or the difficulty around revocation. And so we have revocation in here also. And then, of course, the communication between the middle tier and the database server is secure. And then, of course, you have the secure environment for Couchbase Server. So full stack security. Go ahead. You can ask right now. Go for it.
How would that work? Because that case is in the news now.
Mm-hmm.
Say that they had Couchbase and you all were given an alert that this data has gone somewhere it's not supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to know everywhere that data went, or would you be able to pull it just from that initial source?
So proper use of the system, we automatically do the revocation. So when you lose access, we'll just remove it from the system. Now, you're not going to be able to protect against malicious use. So if someone is, violating your end-user license agreement and removing data from the system and putting it somewhere you don't know, that's a physics problem, and we can't break physics, right? So, but if you keep it in the system, use it properly, your end-user license agreement is properly set up, meaning that keep it in the system, and we'll deal with revocation. It's just automatically handled for you. Right? And it's part of our synchronization technology. So our synchronization technology puts data on a system, and when you lose access, removes it from the system. So that's handled by replication and security. Our entire replication system has a security concept built in, which is about access control. So I'm going to start now just open conversation. So I've covered the basics of how these customers are meeting their needs. And it's actually that simple, right? You come in, you grab the technology, you decide what you need, meet your business requirements, and then implement the technology as you see fit. So I didn't make it overly simplified, right? It's just, that's how it is. So go ahead, open questions now. We can have open conversations, whatever you'd like, and then I'll recap everything that I've talked about, and then we'll be done.
For the local database, Couchbase Lite, what are like the limit? I know the limitation isn't. There isn't a limitation, but what's like the practical limitation? So, for instance, a lot of times it's for using for like mobile devices like phones, but you can also run like a Windows desktop app and then use it for sync. So what's like the real like practical limitation, especially if you're storing attachments like photos, images, and stuff along those lines?
Yeah, so where you're really going to see the most limitations, I mean, you can store gigabytes of data in there if you would like, but where you're really going to see limitations is around concurrent use. Right, it's designed for a single-use environment, right? So it's an embedded database, meaning that it's typically tied to one user or one concurrent access pattern. Now we do support more than one, but you're not gonna, this isn't something you're gonna have a million connections to, right? So it's mostly gonna be there where your limitations are, not on the data side. On the image side, you do have to transfer that data, right? So you're not gonna save anything from that. We just do all of the management, we do compression, we do size management. Once you get it into the database, there really isn't a practical limit other than the file system itself, right? How much storage do you have? We don't spin a bunch of stuff into memory. We don't sit on the CPU a lot if you're not using query, right? And we only do that when you tell us to. You can do that in the background if you would like. In 2.0, we're thread safe. All our APIs are thread safe. So you can grab an object out of the database, throw it on a different thread, throw it on a background thread, UI thread. You can use queries on other threads. Really making it simple. Mobile is a highly threaded environment. It's easy to make mistakes and also not understand the implications of distributed data management when you're distributing across threads. It's not something we typically think about, right? But it's something that happens. It's something we learned in 1.0 or 1.x, and we've made more safe, right, or easy in a developer environment, really focusing on how much time does it take you to do the work versus how can we squeak out every cycle out of this, right? So can we put some bumpers on here where you pay for it in cycles, but you get it back in dev time and support time? And the practical limits right now on the attachment side, since you brought that up, is if you sync, so Couchbase Lite itself doesn't have limits on the size of blobs, right? So we have blob storage in Couchbase Lite also. You can store data and blob information, so image, video, PDF, whatever you decide. But if you synchronize that with Couchbase Server, we store it in Couchbase Server, so you're limited by the value size, which is 20 megabytes. In the future, we'll most likely remove that limit, doing some type of, probably won't remove it from server, we'll do some type of work so that you can just store the size you need, and then we do all the chunking and transfer and restartability all under the covers for you. Okay. Someone else had their hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious about the sync gateways. For the sync gateways, is the idea that you'd have a gateway at each site or each store that all of your mobile devices connect into, and then that synchronizes with the cloud?
Yeah, that's one way you could do it. So that would be a tree topology, and it's one way that you can do it. It's typically done where the gateway sits in your cloud environment. It doesn't sit at the store level. And then all of your employees are using mobile devices, and those connect directly to the cloud. And that could be in geographically located data centers also. So in many of these cases that I talked about, they have more than one data center. Right? You have one in Asia, one in Europe, one in North America. That's a typical deployment. Right? And the devices in the European, if we're talking about retail here, the European stores would connect to the European data center. Right? You'd probably have a failover strategy. If that data center isn't available, you'd fail to some global data center. The same thing in Asia and North America. The one limitation to that is to kind of understand the details around what it means to be offline and how you can share data. So if I'm in a store and I'm offline, maybe the entire store has partitioned for some reason. Now, the employees are going to continue to do their job, right? They're going to have access to the data and they're going to be able to do that. But as they change information inside that phone, they're not going to be sharing with each other. Right? They're not going to get the changes on the other devices if they're only synchronizing through a centralized cloud location and they're not able to connect to that. And so what you can use a hybrid, like a tree topology like you described, where you take a gateway and server component and drop it into a store data center, have that connect to your global data center, and have all of your employees dock directly to the store data center. With that, under that condition, the store can partition, right? So the entire store comes offline. All of the employees are inside doing their job, but they're sharing data with each other through that store data center. So that's one way that you can get around that limitation. And then we have peer-to-peer technology also. I talked about, I think I mentioned that about Emirates. Emirates uses our peer-to-peer technology. So you can synchronize with Couchbase Lite to sync gateway, but you can also do Couchbase Lite to Couchbase Lite, right? So these employees in these stores could also have a mesh network set up between the devices, and you don't have to have a local store data center, and they can continue to share data. So as you come in proximity to employees, you can just transfer your data to them. And that's all secure and everything you need from that also. And there's a nice feature we're putting in 2.1, which is our next release. It'll come out this summer, where we're making our transport protocol completely pluggable. So you can then take it and wrap ecosystem peer-to-peer technology around our replicators, and you can then replicate over that. So if you look at the peer-to-peer technology in the ecosystems, Apple has multi-peer connectivity framework. Google has a number of peer-to-peer solutions, one of them being nearby connections. But they have it's quite fragmented and also ecosystem specific. And so what we're doing is we're making it our transportation technology agnostic of transport. And so you can just plug it into those ecosystem technologies, share data as you see fit. You can also build your own custom replicators if you want wired networks for, let's say, some type of fire system in a school. Right? You could have Couchbase Lite in a panel. You could have all of your data out on your sensors, and you can have all of that connected through our peer-to-peer technologies. So it doesn't have to be like wireless peer-to-peer. You could send it. You could write it down on a piece of paper as long as it makes it back into on the other side. So it's really, really great new feature we're adding just a few months from now. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So that's without an SSL certificate going back and forth. But you're just encrypting it yourself. And then
Yeah, normally you would establish, so the question was, is that without an SSL certificate? So in these ecosystem technologies, you typically would turn on SSL signing, and you would use an encrypted connection. You don't have to, but almost every use case you would. And that's handled by these technologies. Or if you build your own, you just build that into the handshake. We already do that type of thing with our replication with URL endpoints, which is how Sync Gateway works. So we do all of the certificate handling and all of that for you. And these ecosystem technologies have the same. And it's a really great way that those type of capabilities, you start coupling those with things like Bluetooth beacons, right? And you can start doing some really powerful things, right? Like I talked about Louis Vuitton having product catalog in the, how much time do I have? 6 minutes, okay. So I'll tell this one and then we'll get to the recap. But if you start combining these technologies together, you can get some really powerful edge type enablement, right? So Louis Vuitton, a number of other retailers are putting catalogs in their employees' hands that are always there and always available, right? Gigabytes of information and all of the information they need to sell the product and answer questions. Next step, you could use our peer-to-peer technology. Imagine you have a Couchbase Lite database in the employee's device. You have a Couchbase Lite database in the consumer-facing application. They walk up to each other, use Bluetooth beacons to identify that this customer is in range of this employee. It wakes up, makes a peer-to-peer connection between the two devices, shares my profile information from my consumer device over to the employee's device, and now I have both your purchase history, your preferences, and your size information, et cetera. I can start doing queries across that, right? So I can create a very personalized experience right there on the edge, right? Given those same guarantees, right? Guaranteed 100% availability, guaranteed millisecond response times, right there at the edge as those devices are talking to each other. So it's a very enabling technology, and you start pushing those edge concepts and joining them with other edge-based technologies like Bluetooth beacons. And it doesn't have to be an employee device, right? It doesn't have to be an actual human they're interacting with, right? They can walk up to a digital display, say in Tommy Hilfiger Store of the Future or something like this, right? It could be that too, right? Or on a cruise line, or in a bank, or in a hotel, or at an airport, right? All of this is capable, and you can do that right over the internet. No need to have a shared connection. The devices talk directly to each securely. Okay. And I'll be around if you guys want to ask me more questions. I'm more than happy to talk about it. So if we just go back and do a recap, what did we learn? So from a business requirements perspective, we're talking about mobilizing business critical processes to drive a better customer experience, in many cases through a better enabled employee. Right? So we're looking for guaranteed 100% availability. Don't bet a business critical process on something you can't depend on. Guaranteed millisecond access times. When I need it, it's there, it's fast. System-wide security, right? We're talking about data. Very important, secure it. And then for business critical data that you collect on the edge, you almost always want a data recovery plan through the concepts of replicas, which we also support. And so I don't know if I mentioned that, but Couchbase Lite has replicas at the edge. So you can put, I think I did mention that, but you can put a database, the application running on a database on the disk, one or more replicas on SD cards or some other kind of external storage. And then just pull it, use that with our database encryption, and you have a backup that no one can read unless they have the secret keys. So very important. And then if you're looking for sharing data among devices and with the business employees and customers, and you want it to be always available and always fast, you're really looking for a database and sync technology. So that's what you're looking for. And we have a great one. There are other ones in the market. All right. Thanks a ton.
Okay, thank you, Wayne.